Welcome back to the channel, y'all. In today's video, we're going to be covering proper lubrication of oil bath axles. We're also going to cover some things to look for on the caps, just some general everyday maintenance, stuff to look for weekly just to keep you going down the road. But before we get to that, I've got one question. Have you tightened your lug nuts? If you have not tightened your lug nuts or know what I'm talking about tightening your lug nuts, you need to see the last couple videos where we cover tightening the lug nuts. I want you to leave a comment below if you've recently checked or tightened your lug nuts. I want you to leave a comment below to see if you've checked your air pressure, maybe checked your oil and your oil bath axle, or your grease. I want some feedback to see if you're keeping your trailers up to speed. Today is Tuesday. We've already had 2 units come in this week with the lug nuts being loose and one last week. Check this one out. That's really nice, Clark. I know you're thinking that this is some slotted special universal fit wheel, but it's not. It's had a bunch of loose nuts trying to keep this thing together. Loose nuts don't get it done. You got to get rid of loose nuts. We got to tighten the lug nuts. But back to today's video. My camera lady hates it when I say video over and over again. So y'all count to see how many times I say video today. I think we're up to 4. So we have a Dexter 8,000 pound oil bath axle. Whether it's an 8 through a 15K, pretty much the same procedure. The only thing that you would need to do is check with your axle manufacturer's recommendations on what type of lubrication that you're going to use in there. Dexter recommends a couple of different options. Today we're going to be using the Mystic 80W90 is what we use pretty much in all of our axles. So I'm going to show you what the proper fluid level is. A question I get all the time, if you take a look here as we zoom in on this cap, how much oil do we put? So I'm going to pull out the plug. A lot of people want to fill the oil all the way to there, spin it around, put a little bit more until it runs out. You can't do that. It actually has a fill line that's real hard to see. It's right there. On some of the 10K and larger stuff, the fill line is right in the bottom of the nut actually. If you fill it all the way to the top, it will build up too much pressure out there, especially when it's starting to get hot like it is now, and will blow this plug out, or it will blow the seal out of the back. So we'll cover again how much fluid to put in this, how to drain it, and some of the things to look for. So let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is clean the end of the hub up and the oil cap to see if we can see the level in it, and also if we have to take the cap off so we don't get any contamination in. All the part and the fluids and everything we're using in today's video, we'll leave a link to that in this video. How many times is that, guys? Like 7 on videos, I think. So just make sure you get all the dirt, mud, or grime off so we don't get it inside the bearings. So this cap, this is actually a new axle, but it's been out in the sun. This cap is starting to get some weather on it. It'd be my recommendation, to install a new cap. You can take this cap off and clean it on the inside as well and put it back, and that's okay. You can just use, some degreaser, nothing real harsh because it is plastic, so we make sure we don't cloud the cap up and make it worse. But we're going to go ahead and pull this cap off to kind of show you what it's made of. So this is the fill plug that we have here that goes in the end. Also on this fill plug, you won't be able to see it in the video. I'll zoom way in. Can you see the hole in it right there? I think you can see the hole. I can see the hole right there-ish. So that hole is to let trapped gas out when it builds up, when it gets heat going on the road. So if that plug gets, debris and stuff in it, it can pop the plug out, or it can cause the inside of the cavity of this drum to overheat and possibly blow your seal out the back. So this tool that I'm going to use here, I recommend a tool similar to this. I don't believe these are available on any of our links, but we'll leave a link to one that is available that's just as good as this one. We've just had these for a long time. So you can use a pair of channel locks or crescent wrench. You just have to be careful not to crush or crack the cap on there. So that's why I like this style tool. Like I said, we'll leave a link to a tool very similar to this. Actually, when we're going to leave, it actually kicks out here, so your knuckles are not so close to the studs. So it's pretty nice, and it's about the same money. So that's all it is to get it loose. Just make sure you have a catch pan to catch your fluid. Probably going to make a huge mess. And you'll notice on this one, it's not going to have a ton of oil coming out of it. Like I said, this is a new axle. This axle, they will partially pack it with grease and with oil, so it will mix together as it's being used. But you always want to look at the condition in there. This one is clean, oil is good. You want to look for cloudiness. If it looks pink or milky, you've had some humidity in there, you're really going to need to tear it down at that point. If you see any signs of corrosion rust, anything like that, you're going to need to tear it down, inspect, wash the bearings at the least, replace them if needed, replace your seal on the back. And I know some people reuse oil seals. It's our policy here that if the oil seal comes off, the oil seal goes in the trash and it gets a new one, just so it doesn't leak. That'd be a good time to check your brakes out. If you've never checked your brakes, you can see our video on brake adjusting and how to clean brakes and stuff similar to that. So once your fluid is drained, you can wash this cap here. This one has an O-ring. On Dexter, it's going to have an O-ring. Some of the older Alcos has an O-ring and a gasket on there. You're not seeing those near as much anymore. Pretty much every manufacturer is going to use this style setup with O-ring and a plug. These caps are inexpensive. They're plastic. They will last for a while. One issue that we see that happens all the time where they get broke with the cap being on here, I'm going to grab a wheel real quick. If you go to the tire store to have a tire replaced, or maybe you do it yourself, what we see when the tire is pulled off, it comes down and hits the cap and cracks it, usually internally where you can't see it and you don't notice it until you're down the road. When we pull a wheel off of a treader here that's of any size, we actually have a dolly that pulls the wheel straight off, so there's no chance for it to snap the cap off. So I'm going to show you what a new cap looks like in comparison. I'll bend down here. I'm going to make my camera woman work for this video, but we have these two caps. This one's cloudy. This one here is nice and clean. You can see the O-ring in there. You can see the part number. You can probably see the fill line a lot better on this one. We'll zoom in. Hopefully you can see that on there. You just want to make sure you fill it up to that line and not above and cause you problems. So this is something you should be checking on a weekly basis. If you're pulling every day, maybe you're a hot shotter, maybe you're commercial, you're making a living with this, you need to check this every day. On your walk around, your pre-trip, you need to check the fluid level. Keep some extra caps with you. It's nothing to run over a piece of shredded rubber or something on the road and it kick up, snap the cap off. A little bit of oil in here goes a long way. If you lose all your oil and overheat it, it can cost you, hundreds or thousands of dollars to replace the axle. So I'm going to show you a cap that we prefer that some manufacturers are actually starting to put on from the factory. They're a really nice cap. They're not new. They've been out for a while. We've had great luck with them and install a bunch. They're a little more money than the plastic cap, but for the comparison, they're just a great product. So this is what the box looks like. It has the part number for this specific setup, and this will fit a couple of other applications as well, and we'll leave a link to this in the video. So it comes with the O-ring, just like the other one that goes on here. But what I want you to notice, if we can we get that on the camera in there? Let me get my handy dandy pocket screwdriver. So this vent plug right here, I don't know if you can see that screwdriver going to it, that's a magnet. So it's just like an oil drain plug in your oil pan or your transmission. If you're having metal shavings or any wear on the bearing, it will catch that. So you can see it when you're doing your oil change or you're doing a checkup. It will let you know, hey, I've got some wear. I may have some stuff going on internally that I need to give some attention to. This one also has a drain plug that you can drain the fluid out without taking the cap off. We never do it that way, and we always just take the cap off because we're usually going to clean the inside of the cap as well, but each to their own. The sight glass in this is really nice. You'll notice on this one it has two separate lines. It depends which application you're using. It gives you the part number of the cap, and that's the application depending on which axle to fill it to the correct line. Also, if this sight glass gets damaged or cloudy, you can replace it. You can buy a replacement kit that you just take this outer ring off. It has an O-ring behind that as well. Put your new sight glass in it, and these are a great cap. They install just like the plastic ones. I think it gives you a foot-pound to torque it. I think it's around 20 foot-pounds. I just do it by hand. This is the wrong size wrench. I'll have to go grab a larger wrench. So now that I've got the proper size wrench, I'm gonna hand tighten it, get it down snug, and just give it a little tap. And that dude is on there. Then you would pull the plug and fill it. I'm not gonna show the filling on this one. We're gonna go back with the clear cap so you can actually see the fluid going in it, but they both feel the same. But I highly recommend, if you're pulling your trailer on a regular basis, just spend a little extra money, put these on. They maybe keep you one or two in your tow vehicle or in the trailer so you can have it. Keep you some extra oil in there because we see a lot of them. We had one from one of our local municipalities come in this week on an older trailer that knocked the cap off and been running that way, and they lost the whole axle. And the axle we had to order for them is a couple $1,000s to get the axle, you know, for about $40 worth of parts. They could have saved that. So just be aware of that. So we're gonna pop this one back off, and we'll put the clear one back on. And just be careful when you're threading it on. If it feels like it's going cross-threaded, back the cap back out. Sometimes on the plastic caps, you'll lose a little piece of plastic in there. Just make sure that's clean. It'll try to make them cross-thread, because if you cross-thread it, it will leak, I guarantee you. So we're gonna tighten this in the exact same way. Once I get the right size wrench. And you'll see on my tool here, you see the hammer marks. Those hammer marks are from us not tightening it on there. That's what we have to do sometimes to get them off, because some people put them on tighter than 20 to 30 foot-pounds. Maybe they got bigger guns than I do, but we do have to take a hammer to them sometimes to get them off. So now we're gonna fill it up. We're gonna use the Mystic 80W90, and we're gonna pour it in there till it runs out, right? No, we're gonna pour it in there till it gets the proper fill line. So just take your time. So let it set in there for a little bit. You can roll it around, help it get to that back bearing. It's gonna still have some residual oil in it since it's not a complete tear down, and just let it settle. So don't start dumping oil in it right now. Let the oil run back out. We're still gonna be a little shy. I know this is boring. This is like watching paint dry. But you see the fluid level coming up. We're gonna give it a little bit more. We're gonna see if I can overfill it. If you do overfill it, you got a couple options. Pull the cap back off to bleed some out. If you're using the valcrum cap, that's where the drain plug would come in handy. As we showed earlier, you could open that up to drain a little out of it. If you have a suction device, they make, you know, it looks like a grease gun with a suction tube on it, you could utilize that as well. So it needs a little more fluid in it. We're almost there. And like I said, again, I prefer the valcrum style cap, but I want to use the clear one just so you can see a little better. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. And that's about it right there. Starting to level out. It doesn't take as much oil in there as you think, and I think that's the misconception. People will try to dump a bunch of oil in there. Well, that's fine, but it's just like pouring too much motor oil in your car engine. It's gonna come out eventually. It's gonna build up too much gas in there that can't escape. So once you've done that, you need to put the rubber plug back in. So on the rubber plug, sometimes they're hard to get in. If it's hard to get in, take you a cup of hot water, drop that in there for 30 seconds or so, and make it a little easier to push in. Try not to use a screwdriver to get it in there. And that's really it. So something I didn't say, if you're doing maintenance on this, or if you take this into a shop to do maintenance on it for you, two things that need to happen if you're going to reuse this cap. And I'm not against reusing it. If it's in good shape, if it will clean up, that's fine. But replace the O-ring and replace the plug on it. For a few bucks, it's not worth it using the old stuff. If you go to a shop and they don't replace that on a regular basis, find you a new shop. If you're doing it yourself, get you an O-ring and a plug. Again, keep a few laying around, because it will leak. Just be careful. There's a lot of parts that we don't reuse. We don't reuse rubber plugs. We don't reuse seals. We don't reuse dust caps, U-bolts. There's lots of things that are really a one-time use only. If you take them off, just replace it. It's not that big of a deal. It's a lot better being broke down in between the middle of here and nowhere, and being out of oil on the side of the road. So it's a good idea to keep a few of these extra parts. Again, like I said, this cap here, there's nothing wrong with it. I just prefer the valcrum now that they have that out. It just holds up better. It's gonna give you some more life out of it. If you can swing it, buy you a valcrum, keep an extra one on your truck or your trailer, and get a lot of years out of that. But just take the time to check your oil on a regular basis, and it will save you some big dollars down the road, I promise. Even if you put the whole cap and everything on here, you're probably under 60 bucks to do it yourself for a cap. That's a lot cheaper than this drum, spindle, or complete axle. Check out our videos, check out the links for all these parts. Remember to leave us some comments if you've been checking your lug nuts. Maybe you've learned something, maybe you're starting to do some more maintenance. I wanna see what people are doing out there. And tighten the lug nuts. It's Tighten Lug Nut Month here where we're at, so I wanna make sure your lug nuts are tight. We'll see you next time.